To paraphrase Mr. Churchill, never before in human history have so many embraced such dangerous technology so quickly. In just 20 years, 1 billion people subscribed to cell phone service. The next billion took 40 years, and the next billion after that took just 20 years, and that is our trajectory today. And we are now at well over 5 billion people. That's just about anyone who can clutch a phone in their hand seems to have a subscription to cell phones. And yet the most dangerous statement anyone can make about wireless is, I don't believe it's dangerous. I'm here tonight to suggest that radiation does not care what anyone believes. It's not a matter of beliefs. But we're wired over millions of years of hominid evolution to honor immediate threats in our face. We don't do well with invisible threats or things that might be down the road. So here we are, we have 90% of the planet, I just read the other day, smothered in this electro-smog, the invisible smog that we can't see and therefore take little heed of. Now, I was asked to give a gentle information evening. So before we get into the really scary stuff, let's start very gently with the whisperings between our cells. Now, as you're listening to this, your brain is chattering away. The neurons are talking to each other. How they do that? Basically with calcium interchanges between the neurons. The neurotransmitters fire, and you go, what did he say? Okay, I got it. All right, calcium flux, calcium interchange. What happens with wireless, any kind of wireless, especially low power, weak wireless that tell us, and hydro tell us that it's not a problem. In fact, the low power is a much bigger problem because chronic exposure to low power frequencies disturb this charge on our cellular membrane. They open up our cells and we get something called cell leakage. So the bad stuff can come in and nobody takes out the trash, and the cell is open to toxicity. Not only that, it's open to more calcium flooding in. Now, I'm not here tonight to convince you of anything. I hope that when you get through the evening, you will be able to make a more informed decision. I am here tonight, and I did come down here tonight with the hope of saving lives, perhaps one life, perhaps your life, but my real motivation is to save the children because they are the most vulnerable to this radiation. So if you have children, grandchildren, listen closely and consider for a moment the fetus in the womb. Now, her brain is changing very, very rapidly. And I must say, I cringe when I see photographs on the internet of the proud pregnant mother with the wireless laptop on her belly and the cell phone to her ear. Because the calcium interchange in that infant's skull is so severe that we are talking behavioral problems, learning problems for life. When a brain becomes hyperactive with too much calcium flux, it becomes ADHD. Even a 5-year-old child holding a cell phone, and we know they're much younger than that, that radiation goes almost right on through the skull. 2 minutes exposure, they found in Sweden, of a child to cell phone wireless radiation will upset and disturb their brain for up to an hour afterwards. Now, as far as us adults are concerned, 2 minutes, you have a 2-minute warning on a cell phone. After 2 minutes, your blood-brain barrier opens. You don't want that to open because when it does, the blood proteins and albumin that was kept out now can cross that barrier because the charge has been displaced by the wireless frequencies. No wonder we have children, 1 in 6 today in North America, with a neurological disability. We have autism now, 1 in 100 children. Autism caused, of course, by subtle changes in brain anatomy. A 6,000% increase in autism, I would suggest, would indicate there's something going on with wireless, because if we ask our physician present, I'm sure he would say to a patient, what has changed in your environment before you got ill? And the biggest change by far on this planet is electromagnetic radiation. It's pretty warm in here, so if you get out later and you want to win a bar bet, walk into a bar and the person next to you, what's the biggest source of pollution on planet Earth? The correct answer, electromagnetic radiation. According to Dr. Ole Johansson, who is a leading figure in this research, we are looking at 1 billion times background electromagnetic radiation since our great-grandparents' day. Talk about the good old days. I am personally offended and ashamed to view the statistics on brain cancer for children. Children should not be getting brain cancer. And as a society and a culture, I think we need to take a look at our own addictions and our own complacency. Children and teenagers on a cell phone or a portable phone for 3 years increase their chances of brain cancer 500%. Kids starting out today in a wireless environment with all of the gadgets and goodies, according to very alarmed researchers and scientists, will be functionally senile by the age 30, will not be able to function in society. Doctors and scientists looking at this, when they examine brains and do autopsies, find, quote, an astonishing number of dead neurons. Neurons in the brain do not regenerate. They're finding holes in the brain. So while we're on the phone, portable or cell phone, working at our computer, accepting the smart meter, this damage is not immediately apparent. I'm not here to tell you you're going to fall over dead or your brain's going to rot, not at all. But it's cumulative over time, and again, the younger you are, the more vulnerable you are, and the more drastic the effects. Please remember, this is one takeaway message tonight. I would hope that we can go home tonight and turn off our portable phone cradles, because those portable phone cradles that allow us to move conveniently around our homes are a cell phone tower in our living rooms, in our bedrooms, with a range of some 200 feet. And tests in California show that they produce 1,500% higher electromagnetics than being 50 feet away from a cell phone tower down the street. Portable phones are such a bad deal that more than 3,000 scientists, doctors, and health professionals in Germany who signed the Freiburg Appeal, there's a copy back there on the table, petitioned the German government to ban portable phones outright because of the symptoms they were seeing among their patients. Again, Dr. Ole Johansson says parents should take children away from that technology. I totally agree. Again, we hear, it's not so bad. Some people are sensitive and we want to blame the victim maybe. But it's not such a bad, we're not seeing any signs. People aren't dropping dead. Well, in fact, folks, it's a pandemic. I'm talking about brain tumors, the leading cause of death in children under 15. The most significant cancer death, men under 45, women under 35, brain tumors. They didn't just come out of, maybe they did come out of thin air, but thin air filled with electromagnetic radiation. The correlation is precise between the advent of cellular grids and this sudden spike in brain tumors and other related ailments. And yet we're told it's safe. Now, the headaches that people complain of when they use a cell phone are an indication, doctors tell us, of the blood-brain barrier opening and neurons being damaged or destroyed. So a headache is an indicator that you could be on the road to a brain tumor down the road. The blood-brain barrier opens at 1/10,000th of a watt. Cell phones or smart meters transmit at 2 watts. Now what happens when the body feels the heat from a cell phone, wireless radiation, or simply the radiation itself? The body tries to protect itself by forming stress proteins. And when this happens in the brain, the stress proteins form fibrils, very jagged proteins. And these are an exact match for fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and now Alzheimer's. And of course, Alzheimer's rates are exploding, according to the Lancet, British Medical Journal, and that was 7 years ago. You might notice that heavy cell phone users seem to be very forgetful. They can't forget them. They can't remember appointments, phone numbers, errands, simple things. Well, that is an early sign, doctors say, top neurosurgeons say, of possible dementia. It's a warning. Canada's Alzheimer's Society calls it the most significant cause of disability among Canadians right now today over age 65. And yet 1 in 10 Canadians say they would rather give up their mother-in-law than their cell phone. Well, I'm sure that 1 in 10 Canadians would rather give up their electromagnetic sensitivity as well. And that's a very low estimate, and that number is also exploding. It's an easy prediction to make that a significant percentage of North Americans are going to be electromagnetically sensitive within the next 20 years or sooner, especially if the smart grid goes in on top of our cellular networks. Forget Descartes. The new philosophy is, I text, therefore I am. I get phone calls, therefore I am confirmed and affirmed in my individuality. The problem here is that while the amygdala is making you feel good, it's also being damaged. And if it gets lesions in it or irregularities, we become anxious, depressed, dumber, forgetful, and aggressive, according to the New York Times. So you don't want to mess with that emotional center in your skull. You don't want to mess with the hippocampus where your memory center is, and that's exactly what wireless radiation does. Quickly turn to India, certainly the world's biggest, fastest growing market for wireless and wireless towers. 10 years ago, less than 10% of couples were diagnosed with infertility. Today in Delhi, 1 in 4 couples who have tried to conceive for 2 years or longer cannot. This stuff is bad news. Of course, if you're a guy and you walk around with this cell phone in your pocket, and of course it's turned on so you receive calls, say goodbye to 40% of your sperm count, and for the rest, probably too damaged to fertilize an egg. And of course, young girls are born with every egg they'll have in their life. And again, we see the pictures, the wireless classrooms, the wireless on the laptop, and I just shudder. It's hard to be gentle about this subject. It's hard to be calm and quiet about this subject. We have autism, ADHD, brain tumors. We have all of these indicators showing us, especially in children now, all the way up through the teenage years, how dangerous it is to be chronically exposed to electromagnetic fields, to RF microwave pollution. And yet it's all around us.